So if you're anything like me, if you live in the United States, especially in the Midwest, then you know right now we have been inundated with these little bugs. Actually, I guess they're not so little, cicadas. And this year we have something kind of interesting going on because we have an overlap of 17-year and 13-year cicadas. It's very silly. All I know is it means that there are a lot of these little guys covering like everything outside. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about these forbidden pork rinds on my tree and find out, why are they so dumb? Have you noticed that? So I was outside earlier today just watching, and you can hear them from like a mile away. Very loud, but very distinctive in their sound. And I was sitting out there noticing, a handful of them would fly away, birds would chase them, and I saw one fly directly towards me while landing on the ramp that goes up to my little patio area. But it didn't really land. It was more of a graceful plummet, a graceful face plant, if nothing else, because it just smacked its face right into it, flipped over, and just laid there as though it was dead. Now, it wasn't dead, but it laid there for 3 or 4 minutes or so until eventually just trying to like move its little legs and get itself flipped upright. And it's kind of crazy because I have seen so many of these guys just kind of like flip themselves over, and I'm just like, what are you doing? What kind of brain do you have? What do they do to survive? Well, that's the thing. It's the sheer quantity. Cicadas have a really interesting life cycle in that they climb up trees, they feast on the trees as adults, the yummy, good green bits, until eventually laying eggs, finding a mate, and of course then falling to the ground and dying. When those eggs hatch, then what ends up happening is that instead of nibbling on the leaves that they're usually laid on, they fall to the ground. They're kind of professionals of falling out of the sky anyway. You might as well get started young, right? But they fall to the ground, and then they will dig below ground and sort of latch onto the roots of different trees and other plants to satiate themselves for years on end. And it's speculated that the reason that they come out every 13 and 17 years is essentially a couple of things. It's a survival tactic. For one thing, 13 and 17 are both prime numbers, which does make it a lot more difficult to overlap with predatory creatures because it's hard to predict that kind of stuff in nature. You can't have a creature that comes by every 2 years, every 3 years and tries to snatch them up. But also at the same time, by falling into the ground and just kind of waiting there, it also means that they come out around the same time, which is why some years you might only have a few, and then some years they're just everywhere. Like all of a sudden, it's like you cannot go 5 feet without saying, oh, there's a cicada, there's a cicada. You hop on a bike or a motorcycle or something, drive down the road, and you're getting hit in the face with these little flying bullets of a bug, right? And so cicadas are very interesting to me. Now, they are completely harmless. I mean, they can bite, like they have a little piercing tube they use to suck nutrients out of leaves. But still, the thing is, I don't notice them even being aggressive at all. I've had to like knock them off of my deck and stuff, and I will go outside to see them just kind of like sitting there on that patio, staring right back up at me when I'm standing like a foot away. Any other bug would have flown away, run away, but these just sit there staring at you. I don't know what goes on in their little heads. I don't think anything, but that's what's interesting about them. You could poke them, you can like flick them to try to get them off of whatever they're latched onto, and they just don't care. You flip them over, they just roll on their back, and then they just kind of play dead from it. It's absolutely crazy. And it's funny too, because I will sit out there in the morning to see these different birds trying to kind of chase down and peck at all of these cicadas. Inevitably, the cicadas themselves don't really have defense mechanisms. They can fly, kind of, not very well. What I've noticed is they don't even really fly so much as they kind of glide or fly for a very short time. They'll usually rely on climbing up something like a tree and then jumping from a height and using their wings to sort of sustain their fall rather than actually gaining altitude. They can do it. They don't seem to like doing it very much. And the thing is with cicadas is that they spend so much of their life below ground that when they do come up above ground, you might think, oh, well, they'll be here for a few months. No, like their above ground adult lifespan is like just a couple of weeks. It's absolutely insane how much time they spend underground versus above ground. But that above ground lifespan is really only for one thing, reproduction, which is why you hear them making those sounds. They're trying to find mates, and I guess it works as well as, I don't know, echolocation when I stub my toe in the dark or something. Like, sure, I can see why they bump into things. It's not very effective for me. But yeah, so I just thought it was really interesting because I cannot avoid them at this point. I was outside just mowing the other day, and they were everywhere. Like, the ground looked like it was boiling beneath my feet with how many of these things were just moving around. And always usually under the trees where they have fallen as nymphs at some point in their lifespan. So definitely interesting bugs, definitely interesting to see. And of course, cicadas are something that inspired me just last year building with Bionicle stuff. I built my own cicada rahi as well. I'll post that right here so you can see it. But generally speaking, I think they're really interesting creatures. Mostly, like I said, harmless. They don't really bother you too much other than maybe flying into you. But outside of that, they're just kind of dumb. And I feel sorry for them. Kind of funny at the same time. So anyway, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Helps the channel out. And of course, as always, check out the links for Discord, Instagram, and Patreon, all of which are in the description. Take care.